The best place for sunrise. Just open up your door to breathe in the sunshine. Sing with us on the porch.
Today is May 16th, 2015. Joining us on the porch is local musician Sophie Woods and assistant professor of psychology at SUNY Oswego, Roger Taylor.
The best place for family. What are you waiting for? Where friendships run deeper. Come join us on the porch. So glad you're on the porch.
All right, you're here again, and I'm so glad that you're here. Because we're here for another episode of On the Porch Radio Hour. So thanks for being here. I want to thank everybody for being at Concert Window. And I want to thank everybody that's listening to the podcast right now on our website. And I just want to thank everybody. The introduction usually has a lot of thanks, and then we move on. So I guess now is my time to move on. We have some pretty awesome guests today, and I've had some really awesome conversations before the show started. So I'm hoping that those conversations then carry on into the rest of the show, so those of you that are listening can hear, because the conversations that we've had already have not been recorded, but they've been pretty great. Sophie and Roger and I all met at the marina in Oswego, and it was recent. One of the really warm days that we had last week. I don't know if it was Monday or Tuesday. But I decided that I was going to go down and I was going to get some inspiration for some of the upcoming shows. And I was walking around the marina paying attention to the wind and the water and all of the people that were out having fun. And I reached down, I laid down on one of the docks that they had recently put in, and I let my hand hang in the water. And it reminded me of a time when I had taken a sailing instructor's course in Oswego in the marina. And that was in June. And we had to jump in the water, and we had to tread water, and we had to tie bowlines underwater, behind our back. We had to tie these bowline knots to prove that we knew how to tie them and that we could do it while treading water. And in that June, the water temperature was measured at somewhere between 55 and 60 degrees. So it was really cold. And I had to put my hand in the water while I was down there on the dock, and I thought, oh, man, this water is really cold. And I was thinking about that time when I was treading water, and I was freezing and tying bowlines behind my back and feeling really accomplished. And I heard somebody behind me, in a very soft kind of way, very melodic, saying, please allow me to introduce myself. And I turned around, and there was this young woman who was facing the complete opposite direction, and there was nobody else standing down on the dock. And I thought, oh, well, okay. But she didn't seem to be talking to me, so I just let her go. And a couple minutes later, I heard, please allow me to introduce myself. And I was like, okay, go ahead, introduce yourself. So finally, after hearing this over and over and over again, I got up and I walked over and I put out my hand and I said, no, please allow me to introduce myself. And I introduced myself, and it was Sophie Woods, and she was in the middle of trying to learn a Rolling Stones song, which I didn't realize that that's what she was doing. I thought she was actually just saying, over and over again, she was really shy. This is what I thought. I thought she was really shy. She was trying to, ask me to allow her to introduce herself. But no, she was just going over the first line of Sympathy for the Devil, just over and over and over again. And I thought, well, eventually you'll get it. But we became friends in that moment. And we were standing on the dock, and she kept asking me to allow her to introduce herself, and I thought, maybe you should move on to the next line. Sophie seemed to have it, but she didn't want to. And so we were chatting in between rehearsing the first line over and over again, and off in the distance on the horizon, we saw something coming toward us, and the waves were pretty good that day. And we saw this little black dot, and it came through the through the break wall. It was coming into the harbor, and we were both keeping an eye on this, and we were watching, and come to find out, it's a gentleman on a surfboard, and he's coming into the marina on this incredibly long ride, like all the way out. He came in through the break wall, and he was coming. It was incredible how he just stayed on the surfboard, and it wasn't a sailboard. It didn't have a sail, and there's kite boarders as well, but he didn't have a kite attached to him. He's just riding the water, and he just very stoic. At one point he had both of his hands on his hips, and he's just standing, and it was like the surfboard. He was just attached to the surfboard, and it was just gliding him in. But no, it was Roger, and he's coming in on the surfboard, and he's hanging out, and he kind of like pulls up and like parks the surfboard right at the dock. And Sophie was right in the beginning of her rehearsal again, and so, please allow me to introduce myself. And he said, well, please do. I'm Roger. And I said, I did the same thing. But it's nice to meet you, Roger. And so Roger and I then started talking while Sophie just walked up and down the dock talking to herself about wanting to be introduced. And we were just going on and on and on, and pretty soon there were some other folks that came down. They had brought their kids down for a picnic. They had stopped and grabbed some food, and they were coming down to sit. And so there was this odd arrangement of me and Roger in his wetsuit with his surfboard, and Sophie just pacing the dock, wanting to be introduced to everybody that wasn't there. And it was phenomenal, and we became very good friends. And so we decided that the three of us should, in the state that we were all in, we should go out and have dinner together. So there was Roger in his wetsuit, and me and Sophie asking to be introduced to everybody that walked by. And we had a lovely meal, and we talked about all the great things happening in Oswego County, and we decided that we should all get together again. So why not do that right here on the porch? So I'm really honored that Sophie Woods and Roger Taylor are both here, and we're going to get to have some more conversation, and you're going to be part of that conversation. But we'll get to that eventually. But for now, Sophie, you're on the porch. And now, a word from our sponsor. The rest of the world would define our sponsor as the seeds of plants, such as wheat, maize, oats, and barley, that can be used to produce flour. But here in the U.S., we know it as a tall plant grown in many parts of the world for its yellow seeds, which are eaten as food, made into flour, or used in animal feed. That's right, my faithful listeners. Tonight's show is brought to you by corn. This cereal crop, grown in most of the world and one of the most widely used food staples, where else could you get popcorn, corn oil, corn flour, corn starch, lysine, and most importantly, high fructose corn syrup? And let's not forget the recent increase in use and production of ethanol. So the next time you sit down with your kids to a bowl of cereal or at the movie theater, enjoying, well, really any of the snacks or drinks there, you can thank corn for everything sweet and tasty in those snacks. Soda would just be fizz. Popcorn would just be butter and air. And gasoline would just be... Well, let's hear from another satisfied customer. We've been visiting with a family that are all big fans and supporters of corn. And I met up with the man of the house just as he finished the morning paper. I love corn. I eat it for breakfast, and it stays with me all day. Shoot, as you can see here, it's not with me anymore, but it still looks like corn. Oh, Wow. Okay. Thank you, sir, for your kind words. Well, the next time you need a pick-me-up, long-lasting energy, or just something tasty, remember corn. Found in every grocery store, in the produce, canned foods, frozen foods, cereal, and baking needs aisles. Corn, everybody. And once again, we take to the streets with one of our favorite young ladies as she finds her way through music and herself as Sally meets a busker.
Now here you go again, you say you want your freedom.
Wait a minute. You're saying you want freedom?
Yeah.
Is
you?
Oh, sorry, I'm Sally. And you're a busker, right?
Well, I'm trying, yeah.
Oh, yes, right. I'm sorry. Just keep singing. It's lovely, really.
Okay. Well, who am I to keep you down?
Oh, gosh, you're not keeping me down at all. You're not even touching me. We just met. I mean, we could hang out, but honestly, I don't think I want to be held down.
I didn't write the song. Stevie Nicks did. I'm just singing it.
Oh, of course. Please continue. It's a great song. Mm-hmm.
It's only right you should play the way you feel it. Listen carefully to the sound of loneliness. Like, why are you crying? Are you okay?
How did you know I am lonely?
Well, why are you lonely? What's the matter?
How did you know?
It's just a song. It's not even my song.
Okay, go on.
It's only right you should play the way you feel it. Listen carefully to the sound of loneliness. Like a heartbeat drives you mad in the stillness of remembering what you had and what you lost. What you had and what you lost. Oh, thunder only happens when it's raining.
That is not true. How can you know so much and then have no idea? That's not true.
Well, do you want to listen to the song, or do you want to just keep talking?
Well, I want to listen for sure, but that's not true.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. Players only love you when they're playing.
Does that mean you love me? You're playing guitar. Is it any kind of playing? Playing music or playing? There's lots of
At
playing.
this point in the conversation, I strongly dislike you, so I don't think love is the appropriate word. Oh, look, a bus. It's coming for you.
For me?
Yeah, go.
Oh, bud, this is great. This will be great.
Yeah, I'm psyched. Get out of here. Say women, they will come and they will go.
Bye-bye.
When the rain washes you clean, you'll know. You will know. You will know. Whoa, you know.
For the last 5 years, Roger Taylor has been an assistant professor with the psychology department at SUNY Oswego. And he does
emotion research.
Emotion research.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So
I bet that's you. I bet it's a lot of fun, and sometimes it's sad, and sometimes you get anxious about that.
I do. I'm
Right.
actually a little anxious now. I'm not used to like doing all this artistic stuff, working with improv in the middle, and it's fun though.
It is. It has been fun so far. And reading your notes and chatting with you before the show, I got really excited because you're studying a lot of things that I find really fascinating and have always been really interested in. Where I want to start our interview is by asking you when did you become interested in emotion research?
Yeah. Let's see. It has to go back to when I was in grad school at University of Pittsburgh. So I was studying learning. That's always been an interest of mine, how to improve learning and education. And I realized that students would be learning things, and some would do well, and some would struggle not. And I talked to my advisor, and I said, I think emotion's really determining whether they learn this or not. And she was like, emotion? Feh. So they didn't even teach a course in it, so I kind of had to teach myself and read about it and start doing research on it. So it grew out of how do we help students learn better, and kind of emotion and motivation is as important as kind of your reading ability and math ability and things like that. So I guess that was the origins.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. So you were at the University of Pittsburgh, and you decided to start just doing this research on your own.
Kind of on the side. My
Right,
advisor,
sure.
Didn't. So after that, I decided to. I was at the University of Memphis for a little bit, looking at kind of learning from reading text. And there was a person there who started looking at emotion and like emotion in text. So I started working on that, and I guess that was about 10 years ago. So
Okay.
I started working on that and looking at things like do teachers well, I guess a couple of things is how do you tell someone's emotion? Like teachers, they seem to have so much experience, so I wanted to see how good are teachers, how can we help them improve, things like that. So different ways of measuring emotion to try to help, especially new teachers. You have a big classroom, how do you know who's struggling? So
Sure.
that was part of the motivation.
Okay. So how do you measure emotion?
Haha. These $64 million questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, part of it is like, I guess you had to find what emotion is, right? So we talked about sadness and happiness, but then there's the level of how do you express it? Some people are more open with their emotions than others. It's also cultural. So I'm teaching this class in emotion, actually called emotion, and one of the students is from China, and I had them do a survey about different emotions and kind of cultural expectations. And, we talked about happiness and how you'd show it and like using music or color and things like that. And hers was totally different. So color yellow meant one thing for the American students and totally different for her. So yeah, there's cultural differences, individual differences. But let me throw it back a little bit. So how do you kind of intuitively tell people's emotions? Especially, let's talk about kids. They're easier. They don't have. So when you get older, there are display rules, like what is appropriate to display. So for boys, at least in the West, it's okay to display anger, but not sadness. And so there's these weird kind of rules. And for females aren't supposed to be angry, but it's okay for them to be sad. So there's like this annoying stuff going on, and it's different in different cultures. But so what about Lily? What emotions do you see with her? How do you tell?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I feel like obviously I don't know if she covers expressing the whole spectrum because it's enormous, but she comes pretty close, I think, and you can always tell when she's upset because she is very vocal about that. And, she's actually very vocal about all of her emotions, I would say. When she's excited, she tells you. And one thing, too, that I'll throw in now that you're asking, this is really interesting. But she'll obviously be sad. She'll be crying, and her posture will be in a sad posture, stereotypical sad posture. But she'll tell you, "I'm sad about that."
So she's highly verbal for her age.
She really is. Yeah,
it's the parenting here. I think.
Yeah.
And the music. I bet the music helps her be more expressive. Kind of being in a musical family.
Yeah, I think so. She sings all the time. She's always singing when she's happy or sad.
Yeah. So you mentioned a bunch of different ones. So you mentioned posture, how you do that. That's pretty standard across cultures. So sadness is, all right. Slight aside here, there was a cool study I had my students read this past year where they tried to get little robots to express emotions. So they had these little robots leaning forward or kind of showing like happiness and sadness. So we can kind of almost intuitively detect emotion and posture. So the sad forward posture is one. You mentioned crying, so crying is a kind of obvious one. And then what about our face? Well, tears are another thing. What happens?
Right. But in the facial expressions,
or do it on yourself here. See if so I have. Here's another fun thing for my students. I have them do different emotional expressions on their face, and they get all embarrassed. These are undergrads, but everyone is looking silly, so that's including me. So that's why we train them to do. Again, another little aside here. There's this show called Lie to Me. It's where a CIA detective person figures out who's lying to solve some crime.
Okay.
And it's based on this real researcher who looks at emotion and how you can tell when they're expressed in the face. So I'll try to do it for your camera here. So there's certain, that is called AU. Right. You describe it. That's AU Action Unit 1. That's Action Unit 2. And then you can do all these different things with your mouth.
Okay.
They've done cross-cultural studies looking at sadness, and it's the chin goes up, this goes down, and kind of the dropping of the eyes on the side of the eyes. So that's stereotypical, kind of the generic prototype of sadness.
Right.
And they do it for other emotions like happiness, contempt is one, disgust, and thankfully I don't see disgust too much in the classroom. But yeah, so that's one thing. So we look at kind of facial actions. So we do that. We videotape in a study. We videotape their face, and then we can go back and code it. Look at posture and gesture. So have you ever seen the Kinect video game? It's like on the PlayStation and. Well, anyway,
I'm not sure if I have.
For you gamers out there, so it's this thing that sits on the computer or the gaming system, and it measures your posture, like your joints and your head, and it can see how you move, and it records the skeleton.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we just haven't analyzed it yet, but we collected data of students working on the computer, and we see, are they fidgeting? Are they leaning forward or backward? What gestures can we tell their emotion without asking them? Kind of. So this might be something we could have a computer system say, well, that student's frustrated, maybe I'll give them a hint, or they're confused, or even showing some teachers, especially new teachers who haven't learned some of those things yet. So that's another thing we're working on. So posture, face, not so much voice. In the classroom, if you have 30 kids, we can't really.
Right.
Yeah. So I think those are the key things.
Yeah. So
you show off.
Yeah. Let's talk about this watch.
Oh. It's the handy dandy. No, we should do get a sponsor. Samsung, only $400 each. And,
Right.
But yes, a shout out to the Technology Innovation Grant at the SUNY Oswego for getting me a bunch of these.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'll just hand it over to Matt here. So it's basically a phone on your wrist. It's like a old Dick Tracy kind of sci-fi thing.
It looks very Dick Tracy. I'm gonna take a second and describe it. So it would go over my whole wrist. I'm gonna put it on, Roger, just because it's cool. Yeah. Holy cow! It's got a touch screen.
Okay. And what I have the students or the participants do is.
So he's showing my heart rate right now. So it's currently measuring my heart rate. And on the screen is probably, what is that, about 1.25 inches by an inch or something?
Yeah, something like that.
So it's a pretty good sized screen. My heart rate is currently 65 beats per minute.
Wow, he's in good shape.
I'm doing all right.
Yeah, so we would say that. And what we did with these is we had undergrads, so they're really pricey. I was only able to get 8 of them. Well, only 8, but
only 8, yeah, but still.
So for a week, we had undergraduates wear that, and about 10 times a day, we would send them a text like, "Oh, measure your heart rate. What are you doing? What are you feeling?" So we were just finishing the last data collection tomorrow morning. So I will let you know how it goes. But I did a little pilot study to see what it was, and the most interesting thing of the pilot study was, what do you think the most common emotion is for being in small classrooms?
The most common emotion for being in a small classroom? In terms of student size, small classroom?
Yeah, like a small 20, standard.
Okay.
Positive, negative?
Okay.
On the negative?
I think it would probably be, and let me see, based on my experience, I would think that it would be somewhere in the middle, maybe a little bit to the negative side, but more toward the middle would be my guess.
Okay. We measured on this thing called the affect map, but we also asked them a set of from 8 emotions that I did on another study that are most associated with education, but anxiety. So in a small classroom, the most common one is anxiety. They're afraid of getting called on or things like that.
Oh, sure. There's not as much anonymity.
Yeah. And then
Right.
in comparison, what do you think the main emotion is for a large lecture? Like a big, 200 people lecture.
Right. Well, there would probably be less anxiety because they can just be there. It's just like being like hanging out at the mall or in a movie theater or something, right? So so it would probably be more on the positive side, and they would be more relaxed, maybe.
Yeah, less anxious, and the most dominant one was confusion.
So
it was, whenever I shared that with some other professors, they're like, oh yes. So it's always kind of funny. Like we think that, oh, they're going to be engaged, they're going to be happy, but it's like anxious or confused most of the time. That's so it keeps us humble in terms of what we're trying to teach. But
right. And helps you maybe think about how you're engaging your students and how engaging you are. And
yeah, eventually we want to take those.
Cool.
We'll get something like that. So what would be nice is if we can do this future study, we're going to try to get funding from the National Institute of Health to give like 50 freshmen these and like have them go across the year, see what induces stress. Maybe we can intervene. And then also, it would be nice if we could do it live. So imagine you're a teacher, you're up there, and you can see, all right, the right part of the classroom, they're confused, or left part is bored. Maybe I can adjust my lecture to fit in how the students are feeling at that particular time.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so that's what we're hoping to do eventually.
Man alive. Roger, I could talk to you about this stuff for hours. Here's your watch back. It just vibrated and let me know that the battery was critically low and that you should recharge your gear.
Another weakness of this new technology. The battery lasts about 30 seconds now. But you have to charge it like all night. So, but yeah. Wow.
Man, that's really neat. That's really neat that you're participating in that and that Oswego State's doing those studies. And I'm going to be, whether we can bring you back for the show in the fall or when you're doing more stuff and you can do follow-up, that would be really cool. But I'll be following up with you anyway on my own time.
Great.
Because I find this awesome.
And if there are any teachers who are interested in getting involved, it's hard to get into the public schools here. So if any, middle schools or high schools want to invite us in, we would love to come work with you.
Yes, please. Because I think that interaction, not only in taking the stuff that you're studying to the public schools locally, but having that interaction between Oswego State and the local public schools, I think is a really great connection. And this could be a really cool way to do that.
It's hard to get in because of the high stakes testing, so that's
right.
But hopefully you can kind of work towards it.
Yeah, what a great time to be wearing the watch too during some of that testing.
Yes. 300 heart rate per minute.
Right. That's right. Man. Okay, what are you doing over the summer?
Oh, besides surfing?
Right.
I love that introduction. Over the summer, just trying to write up some of those things. I also do... this is kind of strange. So I do stuff with data visualization, how to kind of, on a radio show, I'm going to talk about visualizing stuff. I'm working with someone from the astronomy department. We're trying to help people visualize astronomical phenomena, kind of making it easier to see. You don't have to do math. You can just kind of like use your natural intuitions to visualize things. We're doing that. Doing a visualization chapter with a librarian. Kind of a key thing on that, I was able to work in the title Mind the Gap. So mind the gap for the gaps in like the library. Yeah, it's the best.
Right.
If you're British, mind the gaps. So I was able to work that into the title, the book chapter title. But I'll be writing that up. Dragon Boat Race. I'm going to look forward to doing that.
Yeah. How can folks like me that aren't really interested in getting another degree but are really interested in taking a class at Oswego State, how can we do that? Can we just sign up and take a class?
Yeah. See, the best way to do it is just go to the website, email the professor. I don't know the technical things, but I always love when people come in and just like, you can audit the class, just sit and watch it. And,
Right.
So yeah, just a couple of weeks ago, there's a person visiting from China. We're actually building a real good connection with some colleges in China, universities in China, but she's in the business school. She said, oh, I want to take your visualization class. And I said, come on in. And she just sits on in. And oh, wait, one more China thing. Oswego and SUNY Oswego, they're really surprisingly international in their perspectives. We have this global lab. We have people in Australia and Brazil. And just earlier this week, a professor from China is coming to work with me. She's spending a year here.
All right.
So we're going to do some emotion research together. If anyone knows any good Chinese education stuff for her son, that would be a 9-year-old. Let me know. Email the main man here and he'll pass it on to me.
That's me. I'm the main man, and I will definitely pass that on. And I'll be emailing you myself because I'm interested in talking more about classes. So, Roger Taylor, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing with us a little bit about what Oswego State's doing and what you're doing, and making those connections with the community with Oswego State is just all cool stuff.
Great.
So thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Roger Taylor, everybody. You are listening to On the Porch Radio Hour. We'll be back in a minute.
What's happening in Central New York is brought to us by iHeart Oswego. Theater du Jour invites you to Murder at Café Noir on Friday, May 21st at Mohegan Manor in Baldwinsville, and on Saturday, May 22nd at the Oswego Tea Company in Oswego. Visit dujourcny.com for more information. The waterfront photography of Laura Brazek will be on display at the Oswego Public Library through May. Romeo and Juliet runs through May 23rd at the CNY Playhouse. Visit cnyplayhouse.com for more information. The 11th annual Sterling Stage Folk Fest is May 21st to 24th, featuring many bands, including the Ryan Montbleu Band. Visit sterlingstage.com for more information. The Oswego Music Hall hosts an open mic night featuring guest host Mark Wall on Friday, May 29th at 7 p.m. and Natalia Zuckerman performs on Saturday, May 30th at 7:30 p.m. Visit oswegomusichall.org for more information. The CNY Arts Center hosts a Writers Cafe the last Sunday of the month, with the next session on May 31st. The Arts Center is also currently offering adult painting classes and writing classes. Visit cnyartscenter.com for more information. The Red Room sessions at the Wooden Apple Farmstead are a time for songwriters, musicians, and anyone else who wants to build their musical skill and knowledge to get together. We share songs we are working on, bounce musical ideas off each other, and we usually have time to just play a little music. This is a supportive environment where all levels of songwriting and musical experience are welcome. The next session is May 31st at 6 p.m. The Wooden Apple Farmstead offers a wild edible community-supported foraging program, or CSF, throughout the summer months. From now through early September, participants will receive 7 boxes with 2 wild edibles in each box, along with information about each plant, including identification tips and a recipe to try. Some of the wild edibles will be prepared ahead of time. All CSF members will also be invited to participate in at least 4 foraging and identification walks throughout the season. Call 315-591-0711 to sign up or for more information.
16-year-old sophomore Sophie Woods has been playing her guitar since she was 7 years old. And now she's performing locally in several venues, I think, with her band called Borrowed Blues. I want to welcome Sophie Woods to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Now, we've already heard from you a little bit during the show. I think our audience has a good taste of what you can deliver, but I'm excited to hear more whole songs, actually. You kept getting interrupted that one time. That was really, really awful. But for 9 years, you've been playing the guitar for 9 years. 9 years ago, what inspired you to pick it up?
Probably my parents more than anything, because we grew up with a lot of good music in our house.
Mm-hmm.
My parents, they grew up with good music, the Stones, the Beatles, the Who, the Doors, all those bands, and I think that was, I don't really remember exactly what it was, but I wanted to play guitar, and I think it was an on and off thing for a long time. Like, I started playing when I was 7, when I was 9, I think the ADHD kicked in, I was done with it for a while, and then I was probably 13 when I picked it up again. I was like, it just kind of felt right
Mm-hmm.
to keep doing it. And that was when I started listening to like heavier bands like Zeppelin and stuff, and that's what got me back into it.
Wow. Yeah.
And then I started singing, but that took a lot longer than playing the guitar. I was I was freaked out by singing.
Sure.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like you're so freaked out about it now.
Not anymore,
No,
but it took a long time to get there. And I think that's because of the teachers I've had. I study vocals with Nancy Kelly, who's a local. Well, she's not local. I mean, when I started studying with her, she just got back from like Bangkok, Thailand, or something. She was on tour, so she's great and she's phenomenal, and she's very hard on me, but I've learned a lot from her. So I mean, she's a lot of the reason why I'm not so freaked out by singing anymore.
Cool. You kind of bridge a lot of gaps, I think, with your music, because you are young.
Yes.
And you're a woman.
Yes.
And you're singing really cool, old, rock music.
And that freaks people out a little bit, I think, because it's not, typical to hear a 16-year-old be like, my favorite band's Led Zeppelin. You don't hear that every day. But, I feel like, I don't know why, but I think it's a lot of it is because the music you hear now lacks a lot of the emotion that music 50 years ago had. And I just never really got into it. Plus, like I said, it was what I grew up listening to. So,
Yeah. So maybe we should hook you up with one of Roger's watches and have you cover. We'll do a whole research project. We'll have you cover a couple of songs from every decade, and see where it starts
I like this. No, this is a good idea.
See where it starts to
cool.
lose its emotional.
Yeah.
Its emotional tug.
Yeah. Nirvana, I think, just hit the grunge era in the 90s, and it's gone. No,
stops with Seattle.
No, I shouldn't say that, but everyone's different. It's
That's right.
Personal opinion. Sorry. Rest in peace, Kurt. We love you.
So tell me some about. Well, tell everybody some about the Borrowed Blues. How did you get hooked up with these guys, and what's the deal?
Well, the drummer's my father.
Well,
so
I guess that's probably
we're
good
stuck
place to
together.
have the deal, right?
Yeah. And the two other guys were people that I met through open mic, and our rhythm guitarist Phil Mooney, his wife works with my mother. They work in the same elementary school,
right?
And his son Mike plays the bass. So it all kind of came together, and we started playing at Pumpkin Fest and all that kind of stuff. We played Gibby's a lot though. Gibby has been great to us. Gibby's Pub. It's across from the marina where I was singing "Sympathy for the Devil." And that was it. Kind of just worked out, and I think it's cool to be able to play with your dad. It's really neat because I don't think a lot of people can say that. We bond a lot over music. I got my taste in music from him and my mom, and I mean we do argue about stuff because my dad and I are very similar. So I think it's we drive each other nuts, but we do love each other and we love music. So it's works out.
Yeah, very much works out.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And one thing I bet you don't argue about is the radio station when you're in the car.
No, never. I mean, sometime, we'll burn CDs and drive each other nuts, I'll put some Zeppelin on there and make him upset, and he'll put, whatever. I'm a little more open-minded than him when it comes to music, though. He gets grouchy, but, other than that, no, he's great, and we can bond over that, which is, it's just the coolest to be able to say you're in a band with your father.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate bonding experience with a parent. Yeah.
All right, my kids. My 4 children, I hope you're listening.
Well, and I do get it from my mom, too, being an art teacher. She's got the creative, I got the creative gene, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You were mentioning earlier when we were talking before the show that you're taking a lot of music classes at school. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about your schedule.
Well, I start my day off with 2 ensembles.
Okay.
I take orchestra. I've played violin since I was 9. It's not my primary instrument. I play it. I'm decent, but it's not guitar. And then I'm in choir, choir's different because I'm so used to just singing by myself, and you have to learn to blend and listen to other people, which is the listening part is very interesting. It teaches you to, kind of, listen and hear what other people are doing and then learn from that.
Right.
But next year, since, I'm going to be a junior, that's going to be a little bit different. And then I'm taking music theory in place of Spanish, because it does count. You get a language credit for that now. So, and I'm taking music theory and jazz band and choir and orchestra. So I'm busy next year.
That's great.
Yeah, and it's nice to have that, in your day. I hate when people are like, music and art is just a place for kids to vent. because it's really not. I mean, it's a great creative outlet, and it's, you know, it's amazing to be able to, you know, fill your day with that as opposed to math, which, you know,
that's right.
I'm horrible at, but
that's right.
Yeah.
And really cool that you're able to work that out.
Yeah.
And
we're lucky that we have a school district where we do have, you know, the music and arts, because there are a lot of schools that don't.
That's
and
right.
It's sad.
Yeah.
But
it is.
We're very fortunate.
Maybe I'm always coming up with ideas that I want our guests to do, and so one of my ideas for you is I don't ever have to do this stuff. It's always my guest. One of my ideas for you is that we take what you were just talking about and we make posters and we just send you around and say, look what you could be doing with your students, and then you can give them a concert. You can be like, look what it did for me.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's cool. That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think people need to be aware of that. I remember, you know, meeting a woman in Pittsburgh, because my mom's family's from Pennsylvania, and we were there, and she said that kids got an art or music class once a month.
Wow.
Which is sad.
Yeah.
You know, especially living in a big city where there is culture around.
Right.
Not having that creativity in school. It's sad.
It is.
But we are very fortunate to have it here.
We are.
Very, very fortunate.
Good
and of
for
course,
you.
there's always the budget scares, but it's,
sure.
You know, the fact that we've kept it is amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And good for you for taking advantage of that. You know, you have, as a 16-year-old, you have some different experiences than other 16-year-olds have had.
Yeah.
How long have you been playing with Borrowed Blues?
It's going to be like a year in October.
Okay.
And I think we've made some pretty big leaps and bounds for only being together for less than a year so far. And I think it's the chemistry, you know, like I said, you know, Phil and Mike are father and son, and then there's my dad and I, so it's that dynamic. And I feel like a lot of bands don't have that, so we're really fortunate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Where has been one of your favorite places to play?
I mean, I love Gibby's because it's very much a community thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Gibby is, you know, he's family. He's related, you know, through marriage on my dad's side. So we all get to see the cousins and the family there. But Coleman's in Syracuse has been fun. I got to sit in there with the Tom Barnes Band, which those guys have been great. Tom Barnes, John Bletch, Mike Miller have been wonderful to me. And they're like, they're so supportive, and they're such talented artists, but they're really, you know, whether they realize it or not, educators, because I've learned a lot just from listening and playing with them.
Mm-hmm.
So, Coleman's is a lot of fun. I played there like a week before St. Patrick's Day, so people were already starting to drink like a week in advance, so that was fun, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And I bet that's interesting, too, you know, being a 16-year-old and then being in those environments where you're performing in bars and that
different.
Kind of stuff.
Oh, it's very different. And I hear my grandmother all the time, can you find someone else to play besides a bar? And I'm like, well, you know, it's kind of, you know.
You've got to go where people
part
are
of it, but, you know, and you learn to zone the drunk people in the front row out a little bit, you know, and it's very good. You put your blinders on and you don't let that bother you. But I've had mic stands knocked over by people dancing, and it's just, you get over it, you know.
That's right.
You get really angry at first, but then you just learn to. It's a good life experience.
I was just going to say, that's really
anger
awesome.
Management courses.
That's right. That's right.
No.
That is cool. So do you have any gigs coming up in the near future into the summer?
We do, Saturday.
Okay.
We are playing at Gibby's, 7 o'clock. There's like a whole chicken barbecue thing. Yes, tonight, Saturday, yes. 7 to 9, and then Tom Barnes actually plays right after that with his band.
Oh,
but I know there's another group from the high school coming, and there's going to be a few people. I think John McConnell's playing. John has been like my one mentor, like the go-to guy who's been like, he's like family to us now, but he's given me such great advice, and he's really the reason I'm performing. I mean, I don't think I would have had the confidence to perform without John, who runs the open mic at Old City Hall every Tuesday night. So yeah, he's phenomenal. But yeah, Saturday tonight at Gibby's, 7 to 9.
Cool.
We're playing. Yeah,
that's gonna be a fun show. And you guys are doing you're doing some, do you do some Rolling Stones?
Oh, we do a lot. We have enough Stones songs. Yeah, it's wild. We do a lot of Stones, a lot of Zeppelin, some Tom Petty, some Fleetwood Mac, you know, songs people know, some Joan Jett, you know.
Oh, yeah, Joan Jett.
That kind of stuff. Yeah, you have to, I mean, I feel obligated as a female musician to, you know, honor the women, you know, Hart, Stevie Nicks, Joan Jett, you know, by playing their stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking about vinyl, you know, before the show. We were talking about some of your vinyl, and I have at least one Joan Jett.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Vinyl. Yeah, Crimson and Clover, and of course some.
Oh, like her debut with the Black Hearts.
Rock.
Yeah. That's a good one. Mm-hmm. Vinyl's great. Like, a lot of 16-year-olds don't collect vinyl either, so, I mean, I'm a dork, but it's okay. It's okay.
All good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I walked into my kid's room and saw a stack of vinyl, I wouldn't be too put off.
No, I hope not.
that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask you. You've got at least one more song.
Absolutely.
In you for us, right?
Yeah, and I think Gina and I are gonna do one together. We're gonna do a Zeppelin tune together, and then I'm gonna,
Cool.
another Fleetwood Mac tune.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being
Anytime,
on the show,
yeah.
Sophie.
Thank you.
Yeah, this
thank
has
you
been
so much.
great.
Yeah.
Sophie Woods, everybody.
Thanks. And it rings like a bell through the night, and wouldn't you love to love her? Take to the sky like a bird in flight, and who will be her lover? All your life you never seen a woman taken by the wind. Would you stay if she promised you heaven? Will you ever win? She is like a cat in the dark, and then she is the darkness. She rules her life like a fine skylark, and when the sky is starless, once in a million years a lady like her rises. Brienne and you cry, but she's gone, and life knows no answer, and your life knows no answer. Like a cat in the dark, and then she is the darkness. She rules her life like a fine skylark, and when the sky is starless, all your life you never seen a woman taken by the wind. Would you stay if she promised you heaven? Will you ever win? Will you ever win? Taken by the sky, taken by the sky. Whoa. Dreams are why love's a state of mind. You know that your dreams are why love is a state of mind. Dreams are why love is hard to find. You know that dreams are why love is a state of mind. Whoa. Thank you. Leaves are falling all around. Yeah, it's time I got on my way. Thanks to you, I'm much obliged for such a pleasant stay. but now it's time for me to go. Oh, the autumn moon lights my way, but now I smell the rain and with it pain, and it's headed my way. Oh, sometimes I grow so tired, but you know there's one thing that I gotta do. I gotta rebel on. Yeah, I gotta sing my song on my way. I've been this way 10 years to the day I gotta rebel on.
Got no time for spreading rules. The time has come to be gone. And to our health we drank 1,000 times. It's time to ramble on.
Yeah, I gotta rebel on. Oh, I'm gonna sing my song on my way. I've been this way 10 years to the day I gotta rebel on.
Mine's a tale that can't be told. My freedom I hold dear. How years ago, in the days of old, when magic filled the air.
But in the darkest depths of murder, I met a girl so fair. But then the evil one crept up and zipped away with her, yeah. And there's nothing I can do, no. I just gotta rebel on. Oh, I'm gonna sing my song. I'm going around the world. I gotta find my girl on my way. I've been this way 10 years to the day I gotta rebel on. Yeah, I gotta rebel on. Sing my song on my way. I've been this way 10 years to the day I gotta rebel on. Thank you.
July 17th, 1997. Started out as an ordinary day at Camp Cat Salmon, a camp that was run through the town and sponsored and funded by a lot of donors that lived in town. It was run by a whole bunch of high school students that were interested in becoming sociology majors, education majors, psychology majors, that kind of stuff when they left high school. And there was a couple of recreation majors in there as well. And one of those recreation majors was a young man, senior at Tonkahogan High School. And nobody ever really knew his real name until the day he graduated, but for now, we'll just call him the name that everybody else called him, and that was Hounder. And Hounder was the leading scorer, had several records, and was going to a fairly large university for lacrosse. And he was one of the male counselors at Camp Cat Salmon. And on the 17th of July, he showed up at camp like he normally did, greeted all of the campers, and they decided that they were going to play a game of kickball. And it was a rousing game, and Hounder was really into it, and the sun was shining, and he was getting the kids all excited about going swimming that afternoon. They stopped playing kickball in time for snack, and they all went into the recreation pavilion for snack, and they were handing out these little cups of applesauce with plastic spoons and the little cartons of milk. When the head lifeguard came into the pavilion and pulled Hounder aside, and she explained that something had happened at the pool, and all of the chemicals were off, and the kids weren't going to be allowed to swim that afternoon. So now not only did he have to break the news that they would not be going swimming that afternoon, but he had to try to smooth it over with those kids, because he'd been getting them really excited about cannonball contests and Marco Polo, and now he was the one that was getting them all excited, and now he had to be the one to tell them that they weren't going to be able to swim. So he decided that he was going to get them all excited now about going to the playground instead. And if there was anybody that could sell it, it was Hounder. He could sell anything to anybody. And so he stood up, and instead of telling the kids that they couldn't go swimming, that they couldn't get in the pool, and that they couldn't have cannonball contests and play Marco Polo that afternoon, he instead took the opposite route and started talking about how when he was a kid, the slide at the playground was the place to be. And he started talking about the games that he used to play as a kid down on the playground. And at the end of this incredible, rousing speech that had all of the kids silent and their mouths were hanging open, and those mouths were almost watering at the excitement of trying to get on the slide. And he just stood up then and simply said, "Will it be the pool or the playground this afternoon?" And of course, that wasn't a risk. For anybody else, it would have been a risk. But for Hounder, it was not a risk. Because he knew 100% of those kids would scream, "Playground!" And they all ran. They took off and left all of their lunch scattered on the picnic tables, and they just all ran for the slide. Now, when you've got 100 kids in line for the slide, you have to now start selling other things. And Hounder was, of course, the man to do this again. He was riding high on his excitement during the kickball game, and he was riding high on the speech that he gave them during lunch about the playground. And so now it was his time to shine again, and he started pacing up and down the line like a drill instructor, and he was talking to all of these kids, and he was just pacing with his hands behind his back and looking down his nose at them with a big smile on his face, of course, and started explaining the swings and how fun it was going to be to get on the swings. Now, in 1997, swings were much different than they are now. And at playgrounds, especially public playgrounds, there was always several sets of swings. One set of swings for the bigger kids that just had a regular rubber seat attached to some chains. And then there were the swings that I don't think were technically called the safer swings, but that's what all of the kids came to know them by in Tonkahogen, and that's because they were the plasticky rubber baskets that the smaller kids that can't really hold on to or stay on the swing would sit in. And so they've got the 4 holes so the kid can face either direction, and you set them down into it, and their legs go through the holes, and then you can push them and swing, and you don't have to worry about the kid falling off. Well, there's this one young man by the name of Tyler Carver, and Tyler was of the age and of the height of the kids that would normally ride in the safer swings. But Tyler was what his mom liked to call husky. And Tyler's thighs were a little bit larger than normal kids his size, or the average kid his age. And he started climbing into this basket safer swing. And Hounder stopped him and was like, "Hey, Tyler, let's try the bigger swings, man. You're a bigger kid now. You're a big kid. Let's try the bigger swings. I'll push you. We'll take it real slow." But Tyler was determined. He said, "No, I'm getting in." And Hounder tried to stop him, but Hounder knew better. You can't put your hands on kids or try to pull them out. And he was doing his best job. He's being his best salesman. And Tyler Carver was not having it. He was getting into the safer swing, and you could hear it. You could just hear him securely his thighs just like fastened into the holes. And Hounder was like, all right, man, I guess you're there, so we're just going to keep going. So he pushed him, and every time Tyler would swing forward, and right at the apex of the swing, in that brief second where it feels like you stop before you start to come backwards, you could watch Tyler just kind of shift farther and farther into the seat, and more of his thighs would come out through the hole, but never go back. Tyler was a swinger. Half an hour later, he finally decided it was time to get out and try the slide. Hounder never cried. At least not in public. But in this moment, he wasn't ready to cry, but he knew that in about 10 minutes he would be. So he said, all right, Tyler, let's get you out of that basket, man. Let's get you out of the safer swing, and we'll take you over to the slide. And a big fake smile on his face. And of course, Tyler puts his hands up on that basket, and nothing. He's just glued, just stuck soundly in the basket. So Hounder grabbed him under the armpits. He's like, all right, champ, here we go, man. Picked him up, and that seat came up right with him. And there was nothing. Usually in that kind of a moment, there's something on the ground that you can, like, step on and then pull the kid so that everything else stays secure and the kid comes out, but nothing. And there's nothing. And so Hounder, called over one of the girl counselors and said, hey, this is what we got. Tyler stuck in the seat. We got to get Tyler out of the seat. What are we going to do? Usually, this young woman was very of sound mind and very willing to take on these types of problems, and a quick problem solver and a quick thinker, and she just froze. She said, are you serious? He said, yeah, he's stuck. She said, we have to call his mom. He's like, whoa. Hounder's like, don't call mom yet. I've only tried a couple times. I'm getting your help. We're going to get him out of there. And she said, spit on him. And Hounder said, absolutely not. I will not spit on that kid. She said, no, just spit on your hands and then, rub his thighs. And she's like, oh my God, I'm not going to do that. Holy cow. I've got a life ahead of me. I'm not going to put myself in that position. So in that moment, Hounder knew what needed to happen. And so he leaned over and he told that young woman, you need to go up to the kitchen and you need to bring me back that big vat of butter that we keep next to the stove. She said, are you serious? He said, it's the only way. And bring that rubber scraper that we clean out all of the buckets with at the end of the day. Bring the rubber scraper. So she ran. She ran for the butter and the rubber scraper. Hounder then put on his biggest salesman smile, and he bent down in front of Tyler Carver and said, Tyler, I'm now going to do my best to recite to you one of the best books ever written. And he then went on this journey with Tyler and started explaining to him the Butter Battle book, which had absolutely nothing to do with kids stuck in swings, but everything to do with where you put the butter. And so Hounder went on and said, okay, we're going to, are you going to be a yolk or are you going to be a zook? Are we going to butter you upside or downside? What's it going to be? Are you going to be butter side up or butter side down? Here come the young woman with the vat of butter and the rubber scraper, just like she was told. And Hounder said, great, I'm going to keep telling him the story. Butter him up. And she said, what? And he said, you told me to spit on my hands. You butter the kid. So there he was reciting, is the best that he could, reciting this story for Tyler, and this other counselor slathering butter on the thighs, inside the basket, outside the basket, butter side up, butter side down. They're getting them all ready. And Hounder said, all right, buddy, from this point on, just like me, you're going to grow up and nobody's ever going to know your real name. From this point on, we're just going to know you as Yuki Zook, because you are going to be both butter side up and butter side down. Now this is what's going to happen. I'm going to grab the bottom of the basket swing. You're going to hold on to the chain, and I'm going to flip you over, and she's going to catch you before you hit the ground, and I'm going to slide you right out of the swing, and then we're going to clean you up, and then you're going to go slide. Or, maybe even better yet, we'll flip you over, slide you out, and we won't clean you up, and you just go to the slide, because what an excellent trip that will be. So now, Yuki Zook is ready to go down that slide all buttered up. And they flipped him over, and nothing. There's butter everywhere. And it's a hot day, so there's melted butter just like dripping into the sand, and the ants are collecting, and it's an awful mess. But there's butter all over young Yuki Zook, and they've got him flipped, and they're shaking and bouncing, and the young woman is almost hanging off of him, almost has all of her weight with her feet hanging up off the ground, pulling on this young man, and they heard a pop and a little whimper, and they stopped, and they thought that they, either dislocated his hip or maybe, put his back out, but no, one thigh was coming clear. And so they just kept hanging and pulling and flipping, and pretty soon, on the ground, the whole young man, all of his parts intact and buttered. And in an incredible cry of victory, they all yelled at the same time, and the whole playground stopped, and they looked, and there they were in a big pile on the ground, and everybody thought that there was something wrong, and the other counselors came running over, and the young woman with the butter and the rubber scraper just said that you have to stop. Everybody stay right there. And they threw Yuki Zook up onto Hounder's shoulder and carried him in this victory lap, and they got him to the top of the slide, and he stood there. Young Yuki Zook, with his hands in the air, standing at the top of the slide, looking like an empty bucket of popcorn from the movie theater with just butter running down his sides, and his shorts were soaked, and he was greasy and grinning. And he turned to the crowd, and they all started cheering. Nobody knew what happened, but they knew something fantastic happened. Nobody stands at the top of the slide slathered in butter like that unless something fantastic has happened. And they all started cheering. And he spread his arms like he had seen all of the adults do at all of these big events throughout town. And right before he took off, he started singing, "This is my home. This is my only home. This is the only sacred ground that I have ever known. Should I stray in the dark night alone, rock me, goddess, in the gentle arms of Eden. Rock me, goddess, in the gentle arms of Eden." That brings us to the end of our show. What a fantastic time I have had. And I want to thank Roger Taylor for being here and all of the work that you're doing. And Sophie Woods, thanks for taking time out of your busy school schedule and performance schedule and your rock star lifestyle. It's really fantastic that you're here. And I want to thank everybody for listening and tuning in on Concert Window. Thanks for being here. And I want to thank everybody that's paying attention to our podcast and going to our website. And thanks, too, for posting stuff on Facebook. We've gotten some really great comments and compliments, and I really appreciate that, too. So keep listening. And until next Thursday or next Saturday, peace be to your journey.
On the Porch is a production of the Wooden Apple Farmstead, with host Matthew Wood. Our musical director and sound technician is Gina Holsapple. Our writers are Matthew Wood and Gina Holsapple, and our stage manager is Renee Monet. Find information about past shows, being on the porch, and much more online at ontheporch.weebly.com.